Hello, this is Francis from McCaffrey Crafts, and today I'm very lucky to have a very special guest. His name is Thomas Moore, and Thomas Moore is a very credible martial artist, and has been involved in Doyle stick fighting for well over 10 years. He was recommended to me by my good mutual friend, John Hurley, who is also a very credible, knowledgeable guy. So, John, if you're watching, thank you for putting me in touch with Tom. Or Thomas or Tomas. He's a very, very nice guy. We just had a little talk beforehand as well. And I know I'm a bit of a talker. This is just me at the start. I will leave Tom dominate this, and I'll ask him plenty of questions as well. So first thing I want to do is very nice to meet you. And if you can just kind of give your an introduction to my community, a bit about who you are and the type of thing you're involved in is there with the stick fighting, okay?
Okay. Well, I've always been involved in the martial arts since I was 16 years old. My very first job, the next day, I went out and paid for karate lessons. And I went from karate to I found Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do, which is Bruce Lee's martial art. It was very eclectic. In JKD, you're encouraged to seek out more knowledge. You're always, as you progress in Jeet Kune Do, they want you, they're not telling you just stay with our school. They want you to go learn other stuff. And in that, in the JKD, we would do Filipino martial arts with the rattan sticks and things like that. But it was always something that was different from my own heritage. It was always, Filipino, Chinese, Japanese arts. Everything I'd done was, well, then, as I was getting close to my instructor in JKD, one of the tenets is you're supposed to start looking for something that, to add to the system. So I started getting on the internet, and I found this guy, Glenn Doyle, who just so happened to be about a 4.5-hour drive from me up in Canada at the time. So I was like, I wrote him and said, hey, I see you do Irish stick fighting. Could I train with you? Is there any way? He's like, yeah, sure, come on up, just drive up here, So I made the trip and from then on, I was hooked. I mean, Glenn is like this super nice guy, he's just overly generous to a fault, he just gives that, he's so giving to people that sometimes he gives away too much. And I made the trek up there for the first time training, and I started training with him. What I would do is I'd go up, he'd have a seminar, or I'd go up, he'd have a class, I'd drive up for a class, or on the weekends, I'd drive up for his weekend classes. Whenever he would let me get up there, I would drive up there because it was a, somewhat short drive for me. Being in the States, we're used to driving long distances, so 4.5-hour drive for me was like, yeah, okay, I can handle that. Drive there and then 4.5 hours back. I'm good. So
okay, so if you can tell us specifically for people watching, what is Doyle style of stick fighting, and maybe is there certain kind of characteristics? How would you explain it to someone who said, right, I'm watching this for the first time, I've heard about stick fighting, but what is Doyle stick fighting?
Okay, well, the history of it is that I'm being from Ireland. I'm sure you know that in the 17th, 18th century, they had the faction fights using the shillelagh, where they would, fight over important things like whose cow was whose, or, things like that. They would have the Hatfields and McCoy, the big family battles. And the Doyle system is a product of that time period. And what happened was Glenn Doyle's ancestor, most Irish stick, I'm sure you're familiar with this being that you make him, but most
I am.
Most of the stick styles use a one-handed method, very like that type of thing. But Seafood Glenn's ancestor found that, doing that, he would hit as many people behind him and his family as he was hitting in front. So he was a boxer, and he evolved to a two-handed style where everything was in front of him. In fact, the style motto is ever forward. So everything is good you're going forward. It's a very aggressive system. The what happened was his father, or his, forgive me on the ancestry because I think it's his fifth generation back. Eddie Doyle snuck on a boat. There were two ships in the harbor, and he snuck on a boat. One went to America, one went to Canada. He was on the one to Canada, and he ended up in Newfoundland in the Avalon Coast area, which is one of the few areas that is still today a Gael area where they still speak Gaelic. You know, that's what. So his father, they passed it father to son in that area and kept it up. In fact, I think they actually even had a faction fight like in the 1900s on that area. There's a corner called Yellow Belly Corner where the Yellow Bellies had a battle and, you know, or were actually defeated pretty bad. They call it the corner because that's where they had the Yellow Bellies all laying around after the fight.
Is that where the kind of term yellow belly comes for coward? Does it come from this story perhaps or different?
I don't want to speculate because I don't know. I really
No,
don't.
Neither do I. It's fascinating.
It's a story. Seafood Glenn had told us while he was there that there's a corner in the area where he grew up called Yellow Belly Corner. There was a faction fight, and one of the gangs was called the Yellow Bellies because they had a yellow stripe across their jerseys, so they called them the Yellow Bellies. So I don't know much more other than that on that, but it was passed father to son, but it was strictly kept within the family. You couldn't teach outside the family. In fact, his mother wasn't even, like, they didn't talk about it to his mother. And it was like 1998, I think, or so, that Seafood Glenn had gotten into Hanga Kung Fu and done other things. And he had mentioned it, and he wanted to teach it outside the family because he was like excited about it. You know, he had something cool. And his dad was like, no, this is strictly a Doyle thing. And then his father got sick, you know, and he said to his dad, he says, you know, I don't have any children. And if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, this system will pass away from the world, you know. And his dad finally relented and said, okay, you can teach out of the family, you know. And that's kind of the history of it. He started in 1998, 99, teaching outside the family to people here and there, you know. And like I said, I think it was around 2009 that I found him on the internet and started driving up. 2009, yeah, I think it was 2009. So I started driving up to see him and training with him, you know. It was like, well, that's pretty much the history of the system, is that, you know, it kind of worked up there. So I was so excited to finally do something for once that was my own heritage, because I'm of Irish descent, you know, and my whole family, you know, loves the Irish. A lot of the girls do Irish dance, and you know, we always had that around. But like, the funny thing is like, when my grandfather talked about a shillelagh, my aunts and them thought he was talking about an instrument because they didn't know any better. You know, I'm playing a mean shillelagh. Yeah, on someone's head.
Well, you cannot get a more Irish name than Moore, and Moore means big in Irish. That's one word anyway. And I like how you keep the Irish Omerda faction. I think that's really good. And again, like, I think your origins, you said you come from, like, your origins come from the home of faction fighting. It was 1805 in Tipperary that is considered like when it started. So, like, you know, if your family originated from there, they were definitely involved in it. And so have you been to Tipperary? Have you ever been back?
Yes, I have. In 2012, I went to Ireland. First took a bus tour, then we got off in Shannon, and I rented a car, and we stayed for a week and a half in Neenah.
Oh yeah, Neenah. Yeah, and there's Turles and places as well. So, like, another thing I say as well, and if you have connections to Tipperary, the number one passion in Tipperary is not stick fighting, but it's a kind of thing to do with stick fighting. I think you know where I'm going with this, is hurling or hurley. And tell
Actually,
me, like,
Speaking of John Hurley,
exactly. So
in
why?
his book, he says that it actually evolved. Irish stick fighting evolved into hurling.
It could have. It said so many. I think the thing about it, from my kind of perspective, is that I think everything is correct. It was evolved in different areas, in different ways, and for what people see. And I think that a lot of the theories out there probably make sense in different parts. And because that's how it is in Ireland, you go 20 miles in each direction. Everyone has their own way of doing things. But like, I think it'd be interesting. So, like, how does an American guy like you, who's really connecting with your history, and many of my community, they have the same journey as you, they get to a certain age, usually around 35, 36, and they say, right, I'm researching about my family history, about my heritage. I see about Irish stick fighting. So like, how did you connect with hurling when you saw it for the first time? Like, what did you think? What was your opinions?
I've got GAA Go on my computer here. I watched the hurling games when they come on. I loved it. It was amazing. Hurling is like the best game ever. I'm a little old to play it, but man, it's really cool.
It's wild. It's violent. Like, you weren't like, have you seen it live? Did you go to ever a live event of it?
Well, we had tickets to go to what is the name of that field?
Croke Park or no?
Yeah, it was Croke Park. We were
Yeah,
going to see it. And it was an all-day thing, and we went to Dunamace Castle there, and we in the morning, and we were there for a while, but then we stopped and got lunch, and we were going to the field, and my wife got sick, and she didn't feel good, so we didn't actually go get to see it live. And I remember the people we were staying with, her brother was so upset that we didn't use those tickets. He was so upset because I guess they were really good tickets, because we went to the GAA center there, and they gave us tickets to the, they shouldn't say they gave us, we bought tickets to the hurling match, not even knowing what we were getting, and
okay.
He was so upset that we didn't go. But I was like, she's throwing up. I can't
Well, that's okay. Look, but that gives you more reason to come back. You see, Ireland is not a once in a lifetime experience. It's something you keep coming back for, because there's so much here. A lot of people are not aware of the events like hurling and with stick fighting and different things as well. Have you found during COVID there's been a resurgence of interest in Doyle stick fighting? Have you noticed this now with technology, and how has technology helped you to grow awareness?
Yes, I have seen a huge increase in one. It's hard to find a teacher, and through with COVID, a lot of us, because there's guys in the States. There's Rob Masson, there's Jerry Delaney, that are the old guard guys around my time that went, and then there's new guys like John Border and Brian Purdy, and they actually, during COVID, a lot of us guys kind of disappeared a little while, because in my home state of New York, I'm in Florida now and I live in Florida, but at the time I lived in New York, they closed us down for 6 months, and I had a school, they closed us down. So I just closed it, and it kind of drifted away. But Bernie started teaching Zoom classes, and when he started teaching Zoom classes, I found there was a lot of people coming out of the woodwork that would want to learn from him, and everything. And then John Border and Brian Purdy there started learning. They got their coaches under Bernie, and John is like a marketing phenom. I'm sure you've seen him on his group there, the Irish Stick. That group just blew up.
I'm banned from that group, but that's another story for another time.
Yeah, that group just blew up, and so I was like, to be quite honest, I was like, hey, wait a minute, I'm still here, So I wrote and said, hey, do you care if I do this? So I started teaching Zoom classes and everything too. I had set up a seminar. I was still doing seminars here and there. In fact, I did one in New York, last just as COVID started to break and they were letting people do things, I did a couple seminars in New York last year, but I made the move to Florida because with COVID, actually not having a full-time school, it kind of freed up what we could do, because now I'm doing graphic design and my wife is writing, so we can go anywhere. So we went to Florida, and in doing that, I wrote to Sifu Glenn and said, hey, Sifu, it doesn't make sense for me to be the Fulton faction anymore if I don't live in Fulton. So he said, Tom, he goes, you've done it. You've trained with me. You've done. You can call it whatever you want. He says, you always have permission to change your faction name to what you want. So I was like, well, what better name than my ancient family surname? Because Omorta is or Moore is a derivative of Omorta.
No, it's a great name, and it'd be better than the Milton Boys or something like that anyway. But it's definitely a very, very good name for it. So look, Thomas, I want to learn to be a stick fighter. I've watched this video. I don't know where to go. So tell me, what do I do? What do I need? Who do I contact? Can I do it online? So if someone like me is approaching you for the first time and they've just found you, they've watched this video and say, right, I've just watched this interview. I see that you're the guy who has the experience, who's been doing it for longer than 10 years. You have credentials. You've been recommended by me here on this channel, by John Hurley. You're a great guy. So what do I do? What do I need? So if you could just kind of tell me, to help guys watching.
Well, the first thing you could do is if you go my website, omortafaction.com, there's a page that says instructors. And what you could do, if you pull up the instructors list, you can see if there's an instructor in your area. Okay, because we're growing constantly. This system is growing. We are building coaches to what a coach does is that they can teach under the authority of, like, say, me or Bernie. Like John and Brian right now are under Bernie, so that they teach under the authority of Bernie. Okay, so you can get with someone like that, and they will get you started if you're close by. Most of them have study groups or in-person classes that you can join. All right. If that's not an option for you, both Bernie and I offer Zoom classes. You can contact us through our websites. Forgive me. Fightinghairs.com is Bernie's website.
I'll link it at the end. Don't worry, we'll get all the links and stuff. There's too much to remember. Yeah.
Yeah. But you can learn a lot can be done from Zoom. You can learn probably 80% of the movement. Eventually, you're going to have to get with someone and clash sticks. That's just my personal belief. That eventually you're going to have to have the stick swung at your head, because it's the nature of the business, right? So, but you can learn the nature of the system. You can learn your basic mechanics. You can learn the stepping and the basic placement of a block or of a strike or any of the things that we do. You can learn the basics of it. Then if you go to a seminar or meet up with your coach or instructor, they can tweak the little things on those one-time meetings to get you, up to par. So you can absolutely get this through Zoom, get most of this through Zoom. It's just my personal belief that if you're going to do it through Zoom, you should still at some point meet with your instructor, whether it be through a seminar or, him coming to you.
Are you available to do seminars? Say for example, there's a group of guys, say in, I don't know, Australia or different places, and they want to meet you and say, look, we have a few guys here. How do we organize a seminar? Is that something people can approach you and ask you to, and you can go visit them? Are you open to that type of thing?
I am. I actually had a post up recently. There's a couple posts. One where I put up my availability because I spend 8 months in the in Florida, and then I spend like 3 months in 3-4 months in New York every year. So I made up a thing saying like, you know, your travel expense is going to be a lot less if you book me while I'm in the South, if you live in the South, kind of thing. And as far as like Australia or overseas, my wife is an author, so we go to a lot of book signings for her. So like, for instance, Australia, I have in June of this year, we will be in Sydney, Australia. Now, I'm actually on the lookout for somebody that might want to host me for, you know, a 2-hour seminar while I'm in Sydney, because I'm going to be there anyway.
Exactly.
So,
That's good. That's good. So what's the date? So you will be in Sydney this year. And so if any guys are watching this in the area, get in touch with you. Maybe you can organize something together, and maybe connect with some local martial artists. I think that's very, very good as well. And sorry, when was that again? Let's just remind everyone.
It's June 4th through the 13th, I think. I'm not without having
Yeah,
my
we can link that as well. Sometime in June. But the main thing that I kind of want to get across to guys watching is that you know, Thomas will be in Australia. He is available to do the seminar. You can do the classes over Zoom, but you have to really hone your skills and to improve, and you really need someone like Thomas to show you the way. And you know, and like, say for example, like when I was listening to you speak there, I could see you say about coaching and coaches. Is that something you need to try to recruit and get more coaches? Is that something you see as to ensure the kind of the longevity of this system, that there needs to be certified good coaches? And is that something that that you kind of need to expand on? And again, maybe a follow-up is like, how do you become a coach?
Okay, yeah, I think yes, we definitely do need coaches. This, you know, being that this was taught father to son and kept very tight-lipped for so long, it doesn't have the reach of, say, karate, aikido, you know, the other arts out there, Filipino martial arts. People don't really know about it. They're starting to get knowledge of it, but what they know is superficial. They don't have the meat and potatoes of it. They just know the superficial. They see the icon of the leprechaun swinging a shillelagh, and they think that's what this is. Or, of course, you've got the stupid stereotype that I hate about the drunken Irishman wanting to fight. You know, the British.
Well, there's an element of truth in that stereotype. Sorry to say, I'm ashamed to admit it, though.
Me, I'm a teetotaler, so I just, you know, it's kind of funny, but that's the superficial of it. We need coaches to keep this art alive, but I want people to know that, like, we don't just, it's not like Oprah where it's like, you get a coach and you get a coach and you.
Yeah.
I firmly would, you know, you have to put in the time, you have to put in the work.
You tested. I like. Do you have a way in which you kind of test coaches? Is there like, my question is like, so what's the kind of process to be a coach? So it's like, I've listened to you and you said, of course, you want the high quality coach. You don't just give this to everyone. You have to earn this right to be a coach. It's not just given. And I really respect you, and I think that's a really good philosophy to have. So what's the kind of process to being a coach?
Well, you start out training either in person or Zoom with an instructor, and when they think you get to the level, there's the way we do it. There's 3 levels. There's I'm just going to call them level 1, level 2, but it's really student level 1, student level 2. So we have level 1, then you have level 2, and then you have coach. But there's time and there's lots of techniques in between and movements in between that. And when you're going to go for these things, your instructor will test you along the way. Like, I have a guy in Phoenix, New York right now that's working to get his coach, but he's only started with me on a Zoom session. It's going to be quite a while before he gets to coach, but he'll progress faster because I'll be going back to New York for 3-4 months where I'll actually swing a stick at it. You know, so like I said, Zoom is great in getting the basic movements, and you can do a lot through Zoom, but there's still something to be said for having a stick swung really hard at you. You know, one of the things with this art that, like I said, I came up through JKD, which is Bruce Lee's blended art. And we always train, like my instructor, when I started, we did Filipino Kali. It wasn't a separate class. He'd just say, grab your sticks today, or grab your knives, and we're going to do Kali. And I've done Kobudo, which is Japanese art. And what I've seen, like Filipino arts is very respected for their combat effectiveness. And having that background, I can say that this is just, if not more, I want this art to be as respected as the Filipino arts out there, which are amazing arts. I don't want to, because I've trained in them. They're beautiful arts. But I'm just saying, with my heritage background, I think this art is just as effective and has that, like, for me, it's hyper aggressive because you don't have time to mess around with 1, 2, 3. You're fighting a faction, so
it's close quarter. It's like from the way you hold it and everything. It seems to me it's very close quarters. Like everything is done in very. It's like it's real combat. It's so close quartered. You're not like jumping in or jumping out. There's no rules. It's each man for itself. But as you're saying, once you have the discipline of the techniques, the footwork, the movements, and if you do this so much, it'll be second nature to you if you ever need to do it in a situation.
Yes, and like I said, there's a family heritage and thing, and what I want people that are not only going to respect the art for the combat of it, but I want them to respect the heritage of the Doyle family that goes with it. The Glenn Doyle, like I said, this is his memories of his father. This is all what he has to, because his father's passed. This is what he has to remember. So don't abuse it and like just come up with your own thing and do that. It's Doyle system should be preserved as the Doyle system. It's like the way Seafood Glenn teaches it. He says the Doyle system is a Lego system. So like you can mix a red block with a green block with of the techniques of the system and move them around, but you can't put Lincoln logs in it. You know what I mean? They don't go together. So like I said, preserve the art of the system and just keep it separate when you're teaching. It's okay. Like I said, I know I have Filipino martial arts training, but I don't mix the two. I don't mix the two.
I understand. You want to keep the techniques pure. And what you're saying is that this is more than just the technique. It's also the philosophy. It's also the mindset. And, you need to be, and I hear you loud and clear. You're saying that you have to respect the Doyle name. Glenn Doyle has graciously introduced this into the world. There's a number of factions, and that if you are deciding to do this as well, you have to accept that this is the name, this is the heritage, this is the family techniques as well. And I think that's a noble thing to do as well. And it's great to hear this from you as well, because I can tell just from talking to you, like, you have a deep respect for this man. In your time that you were doing it 10 years ago, he welcomed you in, he brought you up there, he made you feel welcomed. Now what you're doing is the same thing for new people. And this cycle is repeating itself. And I think, look, because of what happened in the world and with technology and with Zoom, these things are this is the silver lining of what has happened over the past 3 years. People have had the time, the technology, and if people are watching this and more coaches, and again, look, if you're watching this, you want to be a coach, do it for the right reasons. Don't do it for financial gain, for this, for that. You're not going to get rich being a stick fighter. You're doing this for you're doing this. Obviously, look, you have your life outside of here as well, and this is your passion. There's no millionaires or people in Dubai who've made billions off this. It's an art form. It's something to be respected as well. And I know you have we'll just wind things up now, but I know you have a bit of an interesting life outside of stick fighting, because I was doing a little bit of research, and I saw that your wife is very famous for writing spicy novels. And by spicy, I'm not talking about Asian food. Do you want to just give your wife a plug there? And I don't mean that literally, but
right? Yeah, my wife writes sports romance books. Sometimes they're dark.
So what do you mean by romance? Like, is it
colloidal revelry?
So it's fiction for women who like to read about romance. Is that a correct way to say it?
Yes and no. I mean, the story's there, but yeah, they do get intimate. I actually do all her covers.
I'm still traumatized by some of those covers I've seen that you have a design business. Another thing too is that Thomas is a very good designer, and because he's a good husband to his wife. When his wife asks him, "I need you to help me design the cover for this," and some of the men have some fantastic physiques that you've chosen. That must be a difficult thing for any husband to do. Like,
I just sit there and I'm like, I have to go through page after page of guys with abs and perfect bodies, and then go, oh.
So I have one request before we give another plug to you as well, is that can you put this to your wife that write a book, a romance novel about Irish stick fighting, about maybe a hurling team and a physio or something like that, or even better, write a book about a stick maker, a shillelagh maker, and he falls in love. You could have a whole thing. I'm quite happy to shamelessly give my face to one. And what I want is, if you could put my face on one of those 6-pack bodies on the cover, I would love that. I would use it on all my branding. It'd be brilliant. I actually might do that. That's kind of funny. But look, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you now the last word. We'll do about a 30-minute interview. I want you to tell people anything you want to plug. Anything that you can't remember, I'll put in the description and the links below. Again, guys, if you're watching this, reach out to Thomas, have a chat with him, ask him some questions. He's a great guy. He spends his time helping people. His reason for doing this is more than just he's not doing it for any gain. He has this kind of this philosophy, as I hope is coming across in this, that he really cares about this. This is his passion, and this is something that he wants to spread to the world. He wants to do it. He travels around. He'll be in Australia, guys. So again, look, I'll leave the last final thoughts there to you if you want to recommend anything you're doing.
Like I said, if you check out my website, immortafaction.com, there's a lot of information there. You can find an instructor under the instructor tab. If you want to reach out to me for Zoom, that's great. There's a lot of stick makers like McCaffrey and Declan Casey, and there's all these great stick makers in Ireland that make the traditional sticks. John Border and Brian Purdy both make excellent sticks for. Sorry, I had to grab them. John Border. See, I keep saying John Hurley because 2 Johns. John Border makes my faction sticks, and you guys make such beautiful blackthorns that I hate to bash them up. So we use training sticks just for swinging main. And this is one by Brian Purdy. They're both good friends. They're both coaches in the Doyle system, and they also are excellent stick makers of these training type sticks. They don't make the blackthorns, but they make these that we use.
Yeah. But what you're saying is essentially the guys need a training sticks because you're going to use them. A blackthorn is something precious, but you do need, from what I'm listening to, is you need these training sticks, and there's several ways in which to get them. And is that basically all you need? You just need a training stick, and you're recommending that for your style and for what you use with your Doyle technique, these are the best that people can have. And as you're saying, I love the branding. It's always good to get the Immorta faction out there. And if you want to join this faction, go to the website. These are the items you need. I think you've kind of given good information there as well. And we'll just wind this up now. And I want everyone, thank you to watching. And I have some more interesting guests lined up there soon. So thank you, and thank you so much, Thomas, for joining.
Thank you. I appreciate it.